This is a fox body, and it's a heavily upgraded fox body. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what to look for if you're buying an SN95, and if you've already got one, what to do to it to make it a lot more fun. If you're looking to go the speed of light, this is not the video for you. This video is for people that have and enjoy SN95s on a daily basis and would like to take their cars just a notch up in enjoyableness. But first, don't forget to do all that YouTubey stuff. You know what it is. Like, subscribe, and share. It signals YouTube to push this video out to more people, so more people can know what's up with the SN95 Mustang. The SN95s are divided into two segments: the 94 through 98 body style and the 99 through 2004 body style, the New Edge. But the early body styles are not all the same. There was a huge shift between 1994, 95, and the 96 year that came after it. You see, the older ones had the legendary 5.0 in it, and these 94, 95 cars are very different than anything that came after it. So the 94, 95 cars should be separated almost into a separate segment. These basically have the same drivetrain as a 1993 Fox body, with the only difference being that it's attached to a much stiffer structure. The modular engines, which will be 1996 to 2004, are completely different. These are modern engines with modern electronics and are very different than the earlier 5.0s. So beginning with the codes, that will be, for a novice, the biggest difference. You see, some of us can just hear a missing pss, 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 and we could tell that it's an air leak. Other people that maybe haven't gone through the pain of looking for an air leak, maybe they don't know what it is. And that is where the 1996 and up 4.6s really shine. If the car is not running right, you can easily plug in a $20 OBD2 sensor and it will give you all the codes pinpointing where to start. You don't have that in the 1994 and 1995 year Mustangs. So even though it's hard to believe, what's actually happened is that the 1996 and up cars are maintained a little bit better than the 1994 and 95 Mustangs, except for the Cobras, of course, because those cars have always been taken care of. Those are collector items. But overall, for most GTs, the 96 and up cars have been better taken care of than the earlier cars, and that's the main reason. When they can't fix the car themselves, they just let it go, and it's a lot simpler to diagnose a 1996 and up 4.6 for everyone, not just the people that don't know, for myself also. And that's a huge factor when you're looking to buy one of these cars. But the real problem was that you really couldn't upgrade this car. The heads, which is the choking point of these earlier 4.6s, hadn't arrived, and so there was nothing you could do. But now it's very different. As a matter of fact, you can easily put PI heads, which are the newer New Edge model heads, on it and be faster than the New Edge cars, because you're gonna have slightly higher compression. Your reliability doesn't go down, nothing. You just get a car that's a lot faster and more fun, and it's super inexpensive to do this mod. So the bad rap that the earlier 4.6s get about horsepower are easily remedied just by changing the heads. Now, there's a lot more that you can do. Before doing any modifications on your SN95s, the most important thing that you gotta do is make sure it's not leaking like Niagara Falls, but then right afterwards is make sure it's got new motor mounts. And this is more noticeable in the 94 and 95 years, because even though that engine is smooth, if the motor mounts go bad on these earlier Stangs, you're gonna feel the engine super rough. But it's a lot less noticeable in the newer 4.6s. You see, the newer 4.6s are so smooth that you could be driving around with shot motor mounts for years and not notice it. The engines are that smooth. As a matter of fact, that was one of the problems with these cars. Too smooth of an engine. Most people don't talk about that now because most motor mounts are shot. But when you swap in old motor mounts for new motor mounts, it completely transforms this car and is ready to do everything else you want to do to it. It also just makes it a lot more enjoyable to rev up and down. So motor mounts, 94, 95 affects it differently, but 96 to 2004, crucial. As a matter of fact, you might be driving around with bad motor mounts now and not even realize it. On to the next point. Exhaust systems. Now the SN95 has something in common with the Fox bodies, even the 4.6s as far as drivetrain goes. They had the same firing order in the engine. So what sounds good on a Fox body is typically gonna sound good on an SN95. In 1994 and 95, these exhaust systems from the factory, they tend to rust out. In 1996, Ford changed the metal to something that is a lot more durable, and they did that while they were trying to mimic the same sound as the 5.0s. The added benefit was that these exhaust systems, they last a lot longer than the 94 and 95 years. Now, there's nothing like a Mustang that's like rolling thunder, so what to put on these cars? I really like chambered mufflers. That being said, as you go louder, the differences between the 94 and 95 and the newer 4.6s, as far as two valves go, they start sounding completely different. So the 4.6 2 valves and the earlier 5.0 sound very similar. However, the 4 valves sound completely different, but it's really not that noticeable with stock exhaust. The moment that you put mufflers on a 4.6 Cobra with the 4 valve motors, it sounds like an animal. It's kind of like a mix between like a motorboat and NASCAR. And so expect different sounds from each. Remember, it's very difficult to capture on video what a car is going to sound like. It's actually almost impossible. So if you see a car that you like the way it sounds, take a picture of everything that was into that car and do that to your car. Don't go by what somebody on the internet told you. This sounds great, this worked for me, because it might not. Go for what you like. 2 chambers and 3 chamber Flowmasters sound fantastic on the 2 valve motors. The 4 valve motors, they have such an exotic sound that all bets are off. On to the next point. When these cars came out new, Ford was still working and emphasizing their NVH levels, trying to get them as low as possible. Very different than now, because what happened is that cars got so smooth that people were like, whoa, wait a minute, this is kind of boring, so let's amp it up the other way, right? But back in the 1990s, everything was about bringing that NVH down. So you've got a shifter that you can tell it's got metal and it's attached to the actual shifter, not a rod like some other cars, but you really can't enjoy it. So one of the most awesome upgrades that is not going to make you faster, but it's going to make the car feel a lot better, is a shifter. When you feel that clank clank of metal to metal, it's better than a Ferrari gated shifter, and it's a lot more satisfying. Getting rid of the stock shifter and adding a man shifter is one of the first mods that every single SN95 should have done.
What a difference. Not only is the throw shorter, but every shift feels amazing. There's this nice satisfying click to each gear. Yes, I can't believe how much better this is.
Every single mile that you put on that car, you're gonna enjoy it more because of the shifter. It's that simple. It's totally worth it. On to the next point, an all aluminum drive shaft. Now this makes such a huge difference that it's really hard to describe. It really transforms most of these cars. And guess what? It's also not going to make you faster if the engine is stock, but it's worth it because the engine is going to be a lot happier to rev down the road, and you're also going to be a lot happier when the engine's a lot happier. All the vibrations that you feel in the shifter sometimes are usually a bent drive shaft, but here's the thing, it's not bent enough to actually replace it with another one just like it. When you buy an aluminum drive shaft, these are weighted, the engine's gonna spin a lot smoother as you're rolling down the road, and you're gonna feel it directly in the shifter, especially if you upgraded the shifter. It's gonna make you feel a lot more connected like you should be, and you end up enjoying the car a lot more, wanting to drive it more, wanting to take it out more, just with the aluminum drive shaft. It also takes a beating and keeps going because they're a lot tougher, so they're lighter and tougher. I know that new, they're a little bit expensive, but in a lot of cases, since these drive shafts outlast the car after the car has been beat on, you can find incredible deals buying these used, and it's a safe buy. You don't have to worry about them being bent out of shape. These drive shafts are usually good to go from one car to the next car to the next car. I know, as a matter of fact, a lot of people, they'll modify the car, when it comes to sell, they'll pull it back out just so they could set it on the side, and so that's a way of saving a lot of money, and it's totally worth it. On to the next point, gears. Now the best bang for the buck, hands down, to go fast is gonna be gears. Now which type of gears to get? There's so much conflicting information. It's just like, what? Where do you even start? Let me break it down to you, and I'm going to tell you the pros and cons. It's actually pretty simple. Different engines require different gears, starting with 94 and 95 manual Mustangs. To me, the best gears to drive every single day and have fun are 355 gears, not 410 gears, not 373 gears. Why not? Well, 373 gears, you're going to be shifting too much. You just are. It gets to a point where you're shifting for no reason. You're shifting because the engine's going to ask for the shift, and when you accelerate, you're also going to be shifting too much. 373s really don't make you that much faster versus 355s. They're just not as enjoyable long term as 355 gears. 96 through 2004 manual GTs, also 355 gears, for the same reasons as the 94 to 95. You get to enjoy the power band a lot more, so the extra tenth of a second in the quarter mile or 0 to 60 is not worth the thousands of extra shifts that you're gonna have to do. It's just not worth it. As a matter of fact, this is a really nice sounding engine. it's actually fun to run it through the gears and let it rev out. So 355s is perfect for the GT. 96 and up Cobras, non-supercharged, 410 gears. A must for these cars, absolutely. Not 355 gears. These are revers. You really can't appreciate how nice they rev with the super long gears that these cars come with the factory. And gears on these non-supercharged Cobras completely transforms them and makes them a lot faster. So everybody knows what the times were on the 96 Cobra when they first came out. That car was doing low 14s. When Ford came out with the 2003 Mach 1, it had essentially the same drivetrain. As a matter of fact, it was actually even a little bit heavier. So when that car came out, it was making the same horsepower with the same engine. Obviously the tune is different, but the biggest difference were the gears. That car came with 355 gears, and that was enough to drop a second off the quarter mile with the Mach 1s. So if going from the original gearing to 355 gears will drop a second off the quarter mile, going to 410 gears, you have a car that's running in the 12s. And this is not doing heads, cams, anything. This is without touching the engine, just gears. If you got that car parked outside and you haven't done the gears, get it done. You're gonna fall in love with your car all over again. It's worth it. Now we can go to the next one. 2003 and 2004 Cobras with the supercharger. Don't touch it. That car came out perfect from the factory. You add gears to it, you're not gonna hook up. It's perfect. Automatics, 410 gears. The automatic is gonna shift gears super easy. Ford was even putting 355 gears from the factory on the automatic Mach 1s, and they still got great gas mileage. But now for fun, 410 gears. You're not gonna have to do anything to the automatic transmission. You're not gonna have to do nothing. That car is gonna shift super good, super smooth, and super fast. It will completely transform the car. The penalties, the downsides of having such high gearing on a GT manual are not there on the automatic because it's shifting by itself and it's smooth. The only downside is, of course, you're gonna take a bit of a hit on the highway as far as fuel economy, but we're not talking about fuel economy here. We're talking about fun. And so 410 for the automatic GTs, all of them, 94 to 2004, massive difference. You've heard it before. Maybe you didn't know exactly which gearing to go with. Now you know. On to the next point. A lightweight flywheel. Now, a lightweight flywheel is gonna make the engine rev a lot better, like you would not believe actually, and it's gonna change the entire feel of the car. Few things can change the entire feel of the car. One of them is gonna be the exhaust, and number two is gonna be the flywheel. A lightweight flywheel. Now, this makes a huge difference on both the earlier 5.0s and the newer 4.6s. The bigger difference on the earlier 5.0s is that you're gonna get a lot less bucking when you're in gear and you're lugging it. With the lightweight flywheel, it's just gonna be smooth as you hold the gear. The Cobras have it, and they drive a lot better because mainly, in my opinion, the flywheel. I see so many people doing countless other upgrades and they don't touch the flywheel because they get advice from this person and that person, and this person also, by the way. So don't take my word for it, since it's so hard to really describe what it does as far as driving and driving enjoyment. Because even for myself, the first time I encountered a lightweight flywheel, I was like, whoa, this engine is built. Like, it revs up completely different and it just feels like super exotic. And all it had was a lightweight flywheel. Unless you have one of those experiences, you're not gonna be convinced. Find somebody that has a lightweight flywheel and take a drive with them. You're gonna see it is transformative. The car is a lot more playful with a lighter flywheel, and there is virtually no downsides if you don't go too light. It is totally worth it. Now, everybody knows that an SN95 looks amazing when it's slammed, and the ride quality doesn't go to but beyond looks, this is a fox body, so anything that you can do to a fox body, you can do to this one. What you don't have to do with the SN95s to increase their handling is put subframe connectors on them. Yes, they will stiffen up the body if you're gonna go really high end horsepower, but if you've got under 500 horsepower, you don't need subframe connectors. All that's gonna do is add expense, complexity, and weight. And by the way, if they're not welded in properly, it's gonna add a rust point to your car because you need to scrape where you're gonna weld. And so usually when you see these subframe connectors, if they're not done right and sealed perfectly afterwards, you'll see rust start forming around it. You don't need that. It's already a super stiff car, and unless you're going autocrossing, you don't need subframe connectors. If you do want something stiffer in the coupe, you can add the X-brace from the convertibles. They bolt on. That there actually does make a difference. But make sure that you align the car afterwards, because when the car settles down, the alignment could be a little bit off when you put put that X brace. So keep that in mind. 2003 and 2004 Terminator Mustangs. This is the Cobra with the supercharger. What mods to do on this car? This is really interesting because 10 years ago, people were going absolutely crazy modifying this car because it came with only about 7.5 to 8 pounds of boost from the factory, and it was already making big power, a lot more power than was actually advertised. But what's happened is that the prices on these cars keep going up, and so even though some of the used car prices are coming down, the Terminator Cobras, even the convertibles, keep going up. So I've seen this happen in a lot of different car markets when a car gets so valuable that people are starting to put them back to stock. The same thing happened with the MK4 Supras. They were all modified, making over 1,000 horsepower, and now they're selling for over 100,000. And what people are doing is like, whoa. Let's look for the original cassette player. Let's look for the original wheels. Let's look for the original everything. And people start putting them back to stock because the value went up so high. The same thing is happening with Terminator Mustangs now. And in 10, 20 years, nobody's going to be looking at, oh, look what a cool radio this car has. They're going to be seeing, whoa, it still has the original deck. Whoa, that's incredible. That's the one I want. And I'll pay whatever it takes. It does take away a little bit from the enjoyment of the car, because as it is, the Terminator has so much potential just waiting for it to be unlocked that it's hard to resist. But also remember that these cars are exploding in value, and I don't see that trend changing. So if you're going to do the radio, get the original radio and put it in bubble wrap and keep it for the next person. If you're gonna change the wheels, keep the original wheels, stack them up in a safe place and keep them for the next person. Or if you decide to sell, you put those back on. Just whatever modification that you do to it, make sure that you can put it back to how it looks in the brochure. Because when people are looking up these cars, they're looking at, whoa, the brochure, and does your car match this? And if it matches this, big bucks. And if it doesn't, then it's gonna affect the price. Now this is specific with the Terminator Cobras. The way they're going up in value is close to air-cooled Porsche 911 levels. And so these being such high sought-after collector cars, modifying them is, to be honest with you, not good. Leave it as is. I wouldn't touch them. Let them ride their wave. I don't see that going down. So if you didn't know what's up with the SN95 Mustangs, the Foxbody 4, now you know.